Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome back to the Wobble Enjoy Sports channel. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. It's been a while, but let's get stuck in to the Wildcard weekend preview. Game 1 of the Wildcard weekend starts from NRG Stadium. It is the Houston Texans versus the Cleveland Browns. This will be the 15th match in history between the two franchises, and it is locked up at 7 apiece. However, this will be the first ever meeting between the two in the playoffs. On Sportsbet, the Browns are $1.66, Houston are $2.33. These two sides met earlier this season, and the Browns absolutely trounced the Texans in their home stadium. However, in that game, CJ Stroud, quarterback for the Texans, did not participate in that contest. So they're already going to be a better side coming into this weekend. The Texans came off an ill-disciplined victory this past weekend against the Indianapolis Colts, whereas the Cleveland Browns, by right, rested their major superstars. Joe Flacco did participate, but they did rest a lot of their other superstars, the Cleveland Browns, and they went down to the Cincinnati Bengals by 14 plus this past weekend. In the recent head-to-head though, so yeah, they won this season, but Cleveland have won 4 in a row versus Houston Texans. The Texans last defeated the Browns back in 2018. For the Texans, this is their first playoffs appearance since the 2019-2020 playoff campaign, where they won at home. That was their last playoff victory, coming back in their most recent playoffs appearance. And for the Cleveland Browns, they participated in the 2020-2021 playoff series, and that's where they got their last victory in the playoffs. But since 1994, they've only made the playoffs on 3 or 4 occasions. So it is a rare time for Browns to celebrate that their team have made it into January. This will be a good game. The Texans will give them a run for their money, especially as CJ Stroud will be playing in this contest. He didn't, as I mentioned before, in the previous game. This Browns defense, man, is no joke. They have a huge opportunity ahead of them. If they can obviously get over what happened to them last week, even though they rested a lot of players, this Browns team could actually play in an AFC championship game. They are battle hardened. They have just played better footy than a lot of their AFC rivals. The Texans, they played in their first real big primetime game in approximately 2-3 years last weekend, and it showed. They were really ill-disciplined. And now they're going to be playing on a bigger stage. Will it help them? Maybe it could, or could fall the other way. I can't go past the Browns. They did go to NRG Stadium earlier this season and get the job done rather convincingly as well. I got to back in the Browns. I think they're just playing way too good a footy, but it'll be close. I'm going to say 1-13. From Arrowhead Stadium, the Kansas City Chiefs host the Miami Dolphins. This will be the 33rd meeting in history between the two franchises, and it is locked up at 16 wins apiece. On Sportsbet, the Chiefs are $1.58. The Dolphins are $2.40. This will be the 4th ever playoff game between the two franchises, and the Dolphins have won on every single occasion against Kansas City. They are 3-0 in playoffs against the Chiefs. Their first meeting was back in 1971. The most recent playoff meeting between the two occurred in 1994. They met earlier this year in the game in Germany, where the Chiefs bolstered out to a 21-0 lead thereabouts. They really dominated in 3 quarters, but then the Dolphins made a massive scare and they threatened to equalize, but the Chiefs did enough. The Chiefs definitely did enough. This is the first trip to Kansas City, however, since 2017. the Chiefs, they have won 4 in a row against Miami. And the last time the Dolphins defeated the Chiefs was in 2011. And that was at Arrowhead Stadium. Last weekend, or just earlier today, I must admit, the Dolphins, they lost and it came at a cost. They've got a couple of defensive players, one of them being carted off out on a stretcher. They had a couple of injuries today from that loss. For Kansas City, however, they rested Kelsey and Mahomes against the Los Angeles Chargers, and the team still got up and won by a single point. So that's a good positive. That's a good positive. The overarching story, though, in this game is the return of Tyreek Hill to the Chiefs. Could have been earlier this season, but the game was in Germany. This is the first time that he's stepping back into Arrowhead Stadium since he was a Chief. So it's going to be a bit of a bittersweet thing. And it would have been nicer from the Kansas City Chiefs if it was a regular season game, but this is playoffs, and I would be pretty merciless towards Tyreek Hill because he's going to be pretty merciless towards them, sort of thing. Miami, they have not won a playoff game since the year 2000. That's a massive stat. It's not the only one like it this weekend as well. The Dolphins, they took on Buffalo, and defensively, Buffalo really got hold of him in that second half. And the Dolphins really couldn't connect properly because of the pressure from the Buffalo Bills. And what my point is that the Chiefs have got a better defense than Buffalo. Do Dolphins have the attack? Yeah, they do. But there's just something missing from the Dolphins. I don't know if it's mentally or if it's a piece on defense, or their offense is fine. It's just there's just something not quite there with the Dolphins, unfortunately. So for that reason, well, not just that reason, but I'm going to go the Kansas City Chiefs to win this game. Some would actually say it's an upset, but I do not see a Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey team, especially with Big Tay-Tay up in the stands, losing week 1 in the Wildcards at home to a Miami Dolphins outfit that unfortunately they just don't have that extra gear in them yet. Maybe another off season, maybe next year they can find something and go to that next level. At the moment, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they know what their next level is. It's just that they need to put some glue onto Kadarius Toney's hands over the next 48, 72 hours, sort of thing. So I'm going to go the Chiefs in a close one again, 1-13. Then we zip up to Highmark Stadium, where we see the Buffalo Bills take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. It is the 30th meeting between the two franchises, and it's the Steelers who have the overall head-to-head record at 17-12. On Sportsbet, it is the Bills who are heavily favoured, whereas the Steelers are sitting at approximately $4.80 on Sportsbet. This will be the 4th meeting in playoffs between the two franchises. And again, it falls in the way of the Pittsburgh Steelers 2-1. The last time they met in playoffs was in 1996. However, all 3 of those playoffs have been played in Pittsburgh. First time the Steelers have played the Bills in Buffalo in playoffs. So that's a bit of history there. The last time they met was in 2022. It was in Buffalo, and Buffalo won. The last time Pittsburgh won in Buffalo was just the year before, in 2021. This is the Steelers' first playoff appearance since the 2021-2022 playoff series. They have not won a playoff game since 2016, and they've had 4 opportunities to get a dub in playoffs. Hasn't happened in approximately 7 years, man, which is wild to think about considering the success of that franchise. Last year, the Bills, well, it's actually 4 years in a row, the Buffalo Bills have been the AFC East champions, and they saved it to the last minute to win the crown this year, didn't they? Yeah, they've gone about it the hard way, have the Buffalo Bills. For team news, the big one is the victory against the Baltimore Ravens for the Steelers, it came at a massive cost. TJ Watt is out of this game with an MCL. So that's his season done. Even if Steelers win, that is his season done, unfortunately. For the Buffalo Bills, they too, in the victory against Miami, that game came at a cost for both of those franchises. Buffalo copped a couple of injuries themselves, but they've been fighting through injuries all season long. They still don't look like the team that was last year or even the year before. They still haven't quite hit that level yet, but that's because they're just so riddled with injuries at the moment. Do the Steelers have a fair dinkum shot? Man, they were gone a month ago. Mason Rudolph has come in and saved their season. I can't believe Steelers are playing playoffs. It's just they just always find a way, the Steelers. So I do give them a sniff. I thought while they took on a B-string Baltimore Ravens outfit, I do think they look decent. I do think they look pretty damn decent. But in Buffalo, while it's still on the same side of the country, Pittsburgh and Buffalo, it's a whole new world, man, compared to Baltimore. So I am going to go Buffalo. I'm a bit weary on the line. I'm not going to say 14 plus. I'm going to tip that the Buffalo Bills win a close game, 1-13. The next wildcard game emanates from AT&T Stadium. The Cowboys take on the Packers. This will be the 39th match between the two franchises, and it is Green Bay who have the overall head-to-head record at 21-17. This will be the 9th match between the two in playoffs, and it is all square at 4 wins apiece. The last time these two sides met in playoffs was in 2017 in Dallas, but Green Bay won on that occasion. And in recent history, it has been all the Green Bay Packers. They have won 4 in a row against the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys last defeated the Packers in 2016, but they have not defeated the Packers in front of the Dallas faithful since the year 2007. And since that year 2007, these two franchises have clashed on 12 occasions, this weekend being the 13th. The record since then, since 2007, is 9 wins for the Packers with 3 victories to the Cowboys. There is a bit of a hoodoo on the Cowboys from the Green Bay Packers. Coming into the game, both of these franchises don't have any fresh injury concerns, which is great. The Packers, however, they defeated the Chicago Bears this past weekend in a close-ish kind of a game, 17 points to 9. Whereas the Cowboys, it took them a quarter to get going, and they've had some road concerns over the past, well, for the entire year, really. But the Cowboys ended up absolutely flogging the Washington Commanders and were able to clinch up the NFC East Championship for the first time in a few years, man. And that came out of nowhere because, as we'll get to, there's the form of a certain franchiser where that form has gone, well, someone's clipped their wings, basically. For the Green Bay Packers, this is their first playoff game since the 2021-2022 playoff series, but they haven't won a game in the playoffs since the year before in the 2020-2021 playoffs. On Sportsbet, the Cowboys are $1.28 favorites. The Packers are $3.72. The Packers, they can score points, man. They're a team that I really don't watch them all that closely, but they have been inconsistent. They win by 3 points against the Panthers, and then they absolutely wallop the Minnesota Vikings, basically, and they were pretty competitive this past weekend against a team that we're going to touch on very, very shortly. I can't go past the Dallas Cowboys at home. If it was in Green Bay, I'd be mightily tempted. I think they are a sniff, but I can't go past the Cowboys, and I think I'm leaning towards 14 plus. Actually, I think the form of CD Lamb the form he displayed against the Commanders and really throughout this entire season. Holy moly, Cowboys 14 plus. Alrighty, so I'm going to skip a game. I'm going to leave one game to last, but the last technical game of the weekend is the Bucks versus the Philadelphia Eagles. On Sportsbet, it is the Eagles who are the favourites, but only just. And this will be the 23rd match in history between the two, and it is even Stevens at 11 wins apiece. This will be the 6th time that these two franchises will have clashed in playoffs, and it is the Bucks who have a 3-2 lead over the Philadelphia Eagles. The last time these two sides met was only just a couple of years ago, and that was in playoffs, 2021, 2022. And it's interesting because that was a game where it was the young Philadelphia Eagles who just sort of sniffed their way in, a young team led by a young Jalen Hurts, and they were competitive for a little while just off the top of the dome. But then Tom Brady absolutely willed his way and dragged the Bucks to a victory. It's ended up being a decent sized margin, but without Tom Brady, it would have been a hell of a lot closer in that game. They did meet earlier this season, and the Philadelphia Eagles did belt them, and that was in Tampa Bay as well. I watched the Bucks' performance against the Panthers today. Baker Mayfield, I understand, is injured, but that was a really ordinary performance from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But speaking of ordinary performances, what the actual F is going on with the Philadelphia Eagles? Ever since the Super Bowl rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs, it has been a sharp decline down into mediocrity. Do I give the Bucks a sniff in this game? I do, but if this Philadelphia Eagles outfit even produces 50% of their best against the Bucks, I still think that gets them over the line. But they haven't produced anywhere near that percentage for about 5 or so weeks now. They should have lost that game against the Buffalo Bills over 6 or so weeks ago now, thereabouts anyway. Philadelphia, I don't understand. They've got all the pieces there. Is it an ego problem, like an attitude problem? Are people off each other? Because I don't know, but it does seem like that their pass defense is their Achilles heel at the moment, and that Jalen Hurts he hasn't been himself. I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles have really been themselves, except for maybe on 3 or 4 occasions this season. So I'm going to tip the Philadelphia Eagles in this game. But dude, Eagles, holy hell, Philadelphia 1-13. And legitimately, this is the game of the weekend. This is technically the second last game of the Wildcard weekend. It is happening on Monday afternoon or Sunday night football over in the United States. This is the biggest game of the weekend. It is one of the most anticipated matches of the entire season. And I truly, because I don't think so, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think anyone's ready for the drama and the skill level and the excitement that we're going to see in this contest. The Detroit Lions versus the Los Angeles Rams on Sportsbet. The Lions are $1.53. Rams are $2.53. Already, there is a hell of a lot of value on the Rams. This will be the 88th meeting between the Lions and the Rams, and Los Angeles are 45-41 with one draw thrown in there as well. These two sides have met in playoffs on only one occasion. That was in 1952 in Detroit, and the Detroit Lions won. In regular season competition, the last time these two sides met was in 2021. That was in LA. The Rams won on that occasion. This is the first trip to Detroit for the Rams since 2018, and the Rams won on that occasion. Detroit last defeated the Rams in 2016, and that game, again, it was in Detroit. Detroit, they have not hosted a playoff game since 1993. This is their first playoff appearance since 2016, but they have not won a playoff game since the 1991-1992 playoff series where they won in Detroit. Their overall playoff record is 7-13, and it will be their 21st playoff match in their history this weekend. For the Los Angeles Rams, this is their first playoff appearance since they won the Super Bowl a couple of years back. And last weekend, the Detroit Lions, they took on the Minnesota Vikings at full strength. I personally would have rested them. I would have made them just boil on even further. They won 30-20, so again, it's the defense of the Detroit Lions where you don't ever want to get into a shootout with the Detroit Lions, but they still leak a lot of points. So I was anticipating maybe a little bit better defensive record because the Lions did go into the Cowboys' home ground the week before and took it to them. And by right, they should have won that game and should have handed the Cowboys' first loss inside AT&T Stadium for the first time in, 18 months or thereabouts sort of thing, for the first time in a really long time. So for the Los Angeles Rams, they went to San Francisco, and while the likes of a Brock Purdy and a Christian McCaffrey were rested, Kittle as well, they did walk away from Santa Clara with a 1-point victory. That's a nice morale-boosting victory. They've been on the road now for 2 weeks in a row, and they've had 1-point victories against the 49ers and just snuck away against the New York Giants. This match is so even. I can't believe that Sportsbet actually have the Rams at $2.53. That is already really nice value, as I said earlier. We've got the likes of Amon-Ra St. Brown taking on offensive rookie of the year, maybe surely, or at least one of the most destructive rookies we've ever seen in offense in Puka Nacua. You've also got Aaron Donald, who's still playing defense, the superstar that he is, coming up against this Lions outfit that again restricted the Cowboys to only about 21 points just the other week. They should have won that game. And then you got the overarching story of Jared Goff taking on his old Rams team, who he took to a Super Bowl but didn't win. But then you got Matt Stafford, who's coming back to Detroit to take on his old team for the first time, for the first time in the old stomping grounds. This is a script writer's dream. I am so excited for this game. I think this could be a 27-24 classic. And there's a piece of me that thinks the Rams are going to burst the bubble of the Detroit Lions. For as magical as their year has been, Detroit, oh man, it would be just that one more brick of hard luck on top of the Detroit franchise as a whole, to just cop this, and maybe next year is the year. So this Rams outfit, they can absolutely do it. They only just snuck away against the New York Giants, and they did defeat the 49ers B-string side, but the Rams themselves, they were not playing Matt Stafford as well. So they would, Cooper Kupp, I don't believe, played off the top of my head as well. So they rested players as well, did the Los Angeles Rams. So they might be a little bit fresher. And I really think the Rams could win. And there's an awful piece of me that think they will. Because at the moment, I think they are, well, they have a case to make that they are the most informed team in the NFC. Despite only just getting away with the dub against the New York Giants and beating a second-string side in the 49ers. Whereas the Detroit Lions, they lost to the Cowboys. They were up 10, 13 points to nil at quarter time. today against the Vikings, and then just maybe it's just because they had one eye on the playoffs and they just sort of played within themselves, and they were fearing injury. And by the way, I don't think any injury concerns came out of that game for the Detroit Lions, which is fantastic. As a matter of fact, I think they got one of the Philadelphia Eagles defensive players from last season back on just today as well for the first time since week 2. So they got a little bit better in defense, and he'll be better for the run coming into this weekend. I genuinely think that this is a flip of the coin. One of these teams could absolutely win. And while I'm absolutely frightened to death about the prospects and the scenes of a Rams victory, my team that I'm barracking for, that I'm putting the hat on for, is the Detroit Lions in this playoff series. Like 100%, man. I so hope they get the victory. It would be an incredible scene. I think they can win. I'm going to tip the Detroit Lions to win this game 1-13. I think we're in for a classic. I don't think I'm ready. And I don't think anyone's ready for what kind of a game we're going to see. This is going to be awesome. Yo, that's it for me, guys. Thank you very much for the continuing support. Thank you for giving this video a crack. Hope your team goes well this weekend. Enjoy the playoffs. Oh man, bring it on. Wildcard weekend, main evented by the Lions versus the Rams. Wow. Take care. Adios.